Nate, thank you for joining us. Nate Reber from PrimeSource Investigations. This is our first time being able to interview you, which is fantastic. So we'll get into some nitty gritty here, and I think we had probably about 10 pages of talking points we could get to. So if we don't get to everything, obviously we'll have to do another session here in the near future, which would be good. But so just kind of getting into it. So you're basically, would you consider yourself a PI? Like, I mean, that's basically what it boils down to, right?
Yeah, so we're private investigators. I mean, insurance investigators, really. Surveillance operatives, social media analysts. That's the title, I guess, you'd give us.
Okay, all right. And so you don't carry a gun or anything, though?
No
with you,
guns.
right? Okay.
Yeah, too much liability.
No kidding, especially these days. All right, so really quickly, PrimeSource Investigations. How long have you been in business? Where are you located out of, and what kind of complement of services do you guys offer?
So we're a full-service agency, right? We offer all type of investigative services, but specifically, we're known for surveillance, right? Getting good video evidence on a regular basis.
Yep.
And social media, with the changing in society, that's become very prevalent in our industry over the last 10 years. So, so they're the two areas that we focus on. Been in business for about 20 years. We're based in South Jersey in Mount Laurel. We're a smaller firm. We're not a nationwide company, but we're regional. We cover the New Jersey, PA, Delaware, and New York areas, and we have about 40 employees. So, what I would say our typical client is somebody involved, an insurance professional involved in risk management. So we deal with TPAs, defense attorneys, joint insurance funds. And we have a lot of clients that are state entities and local municipalities as well.
Okay. And is it pretty much relegated to public sector, or do you also do some commercial stuff as well?
No, we work with many self-insureds as well, that have their, risk that they have to monitor and when necessary, investigate.
Okay. And how did you specifically get into the world of doing PI or claims investigation kind of work?
So it's, a long route of many false hopes, I guess. I was a criminal justice major at Temple University, thought I'd be the next FBI agent, and things change. You gain respect for different industries, and I did a short stint at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. I worked in the Family Violence and Sexual Assault Unit there, which I learned a lot about evidence, discovery, regulations, and I took that information with me to the private side.
Yep.
I became a surveillance operative in my early 20s. I'm a young guy, but I've been doing it for over 10 years. So I was out in the field, boots on the ground, doing surveillance in the cold winter and the hot summer. And from there, I moved into management. I started managing about 15 investigators.
Okay.
And now I, deal with a lot of my client relations, understanding the cases better, knowing why we're investigating cases, and educating our clients on what we can do to help them mitigate exposure.
Okay. So that was going to be like my follow-up question was really, so, my personal interest is really on the insurance risk management side for the clients that we work with, or that we will work with in the future. So really from your role and your perspective, what you and your firm add to the risk management process or the risk management program, if you had to kind of distill that into a couple of points, what are you really adding? Because I know, so a lot of people think of claims investigation as like you guys being the kind of, how should I say, like doing the dirty work, right? You're trying to get the gotcha kind of like moment, right? But in the grand scheme of things, it's really altruistic, right? You're trying to save money or really kind of combat fraud, right? So are those kind of the two big selling points of bringing in a firm like yours in order to investigate some of those claims that an employer might have?
Absolutely. It's all dollars and cents, right? So I would explain us as an a la carte service. We're not going to be involved on each and every case, right? Your normal insured with thousands of employees is going to have dozens, if not hundreds, of claims a year.
Right.
You're not going to hire a PI for every case, right? Minor slip and falls or compensable cases that are legitimate. You don't need to investigate.
Right.
It's when you have that over exaggeration, gross exaggeration, misrepresentation, symptom magnification. Things aren't adding up, right?
Right.
that's when, you know, you need to have a second set of eyes, take a look at it.
Yep.
And that's where, you know, most of our insureds will come to PrimeSource and say, you know, we'd like to take a look at the individual social media presence. We'd like to see what they're doing, you know, while out there, you know, living their daily lifestyle.
Right.
You know, it really breaks down to dollars and the value of a case based off of what somebody claims their inabilities are as a result of their, say, work injury.
Right, right.
You know, if somebody's claiming orthopedic injuries because of a back injury and they say they can't ambulate without a cane or a wheelchair, we go out and we determine, are they ambulating? Are they playing basketball?
Yeah.
Are they doing stuff that they totally say they can't do?
Yeah, shoveling the driveway. Yes,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. You know, and then even in psychological cases, right, which we're having a lot more of with PTSD and anxiety and depression, concussions, closed head injuries. You know, where people are telling their doctors, I can't go back to work because I can't even drive.
Right.
And I can't leave the house without sunglasses. But yet we're out there, they're driving, they're picking up their kids, they're going grocery shopping,
Yep.
working out at the gym. Not wearing sunglasses. So they're the things that we want to compare and contrast, right?
Sure.
You got their story. You got their claim petition. You know what they're alleging. And that's going to cause their attorney to say, this is how much this case is worth.
Right, right.
And as a result, we're going to go out and we're going to try to mitigate that exposure and tell you what really is going on. Sometimes people are legitimate.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they're not.
Well, not to devolve into you know, like a political discussion or anything like that, but specifically on the workers' comp side, right? The courts in New Jersey and the Northeast seem to be a lot more liberal than in other parts of the country, right? With maybe the exception of California and a couple of other spots. But so, you know, I think the value from my perspective is when those red flags do kind of show up, where, you know, a claim just just doesn't sound right, right?
Yeah.
The employee had a you know, kind of a minor incident, and now all of a sudden it's blown up into this, you know, big back claim or something like that, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. A lot of times, you know, it doesn't pass the smell test, right? But when it gets to the court system, even if it smells a little bit funny, they're always going to err on the side of the employee, right?
Of course.
And that's by design. That's to really look out for the employee's best interest, so that like a predatory employer isn't necessarily just fighting every single claim to try and knock it out and not have to pay anything. So when you come into the picture, you're helping to combat that that dynamic, right? The employee just can't say, oh, well, you know, I had one good day and that's just why, you know, I kind of, you know, my fellow employee saw me doing something that I shouldn't have been doing. You're actually sitting there creating, you know, a catalog of evidence, right?
Yeah, so, you know, that's the best defense that most petitioners have is, you know, yeah, you caught me playing basketball, but it was just that one day. And I'll tell you what, I had PT earlier in the morning and I was feeling great. And, you know, I was really loose out there.
Right.
Even though I played for 2 hours, you know, it just was that one good day.
Yep.
But no, we don't want to get one good day. We want to, you know, develop a pattern. And a lot of times I have my clients, you know, in large loss cases where you're looking at 6-figure demands, rather than just going out there for 3 days of surveillance in 1 month period, I'd say let's scatter this a little bit. Let's do a day here and then again in 2 weeks and again in 2 weeks,
right.
To show that, you know, there's an evolution of this individual continuing to move orthopedically without restraint.
Right. And I think the other dynamic there is, it's not necessarily that you're building a case to say that the employee shouldn't be covered at all, right? It's also doing the due diligence to figure out, all right, if they have suffered a eligible injury and they have some disability that comes with it, kind of finding a measuring stick for trying to figure out how much disability is there, right?
So if it's a compensable claim, it's a compensable claim, right? If there's an injury there and there's a demand that needs to be met, then there is. But it's really that, you know, do we need to go to the highest value, or do we bring that value down based off of the abilities that the individual still has?
Right, right. And that also comes into play from, and we'll talk later. We have another episodes lined up with John Geeney from Cape Art Scatcherd, but that really kind of comes into play with the defense attorney's role is, you know, the employee and their attorney is going to put a number on it and think what, you know, they want to think the value of the disability or the overall claim is. the defense side also has to come up with some kind of idea of what that is. And so, I've seen it in action. Your guys' feedback into that process really helps a lot, so that sometimes an equitable resolution actually can be found as long as we know kind of what the continuum is here, as opposed to, one person asks for $1 million and the employer wants to pay 10,
Right.
yeah.
And I would say that the defense attorneys, John Gainey, K-Park, great guy, very good friend of mine. But they only have so many tools, right? Obviously, they're a great legal team, and they put their legal work into it. They have their doctors and their IMEs and the reports from their doctors. But, being able to combat, somebody saying they need a six-figure demand, versus, tens of thousands of dollars is surveillance, right? And
right.
that's where we play a big part. And, I know John and his team really value the evidence that we can help and, give them a stepping stone in that argument,
right.
Against the petitioner's attorney.
Oh, yeah. So just to take a short step back, so we talked about kind of the red flags that can be built into some of these claims that might result in bringing in a firm like yours in order to do some investigative work. What are some of those red flags that can kind of come up and really clue someone in that, the claim is either something where you need to come in and put some, numbers behind it, or help put some numbers behind it, or maybe even might just be an outright fraudulent claim?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you can't investigate them all, right? So I often tell my insureds and, risk managers, personnel directors, BAs at schools, you're on the front line, right? You're the one that you're going to get the tips from other coworkers telling you that this guy's fraudulent.
Oh, yeah.
Or you're going to be the one reviewing the video or the lack of video in a situation. And that's the information that you need to pass down the food chain, specifically with your TPA, that's handling it.
Yep.
Your defense attorneys and us as the investigators. So we know how we want to direct our investigation and whether or not there needs to be an investigation. So there's red flags as to whether or not a situation is compensable, right?
Right.
No witness, no video.
Right.
Let's take an example of a janitor at a school getting injured on a Monday morning at 6 a.m. It's not due until 8.
Yeah.
And it happened where there was no video evidence, right?
Yes. Yep.
Did this actually happen? Is it compensable? That's a big red flag. Did it happen over the weekend and does social media show that this guy was playing football and he twisted his ACL or something over the weekend? So that's one example how a red flag could be used. You can look at an individual as well, the family dynamic. Is there a history of claims there? Does this individual's, both of his parents get a nice settlement at one point? It's almost a feeling that he's due his just settlement as well.
Right.
Or is this guy, a career claimant? Does he have an ISO sheet that is 5 pages long of 10 prior claims?
Yep.
And, he did it at all the other places he was working at. So they're good examples of red flags. When doctors from an FCE or an IME say, this guy was dogging it. He was in here, on crutches and a brace, and he was over exaggerating to me. I think you should take a look at him and see if he's really living the same lifestyle that he's telling me he's living.
Right.
So they're the big ones. Our favorite is the over exaggerated I can't do anything claim.
Yeah, right.
So that's the guy that
totally
has
incapacitated.
a 3-mile-per-hour motor vehicle accident, whereas a fender bender or a slip and fall in a hallway that was very minor, but yet now their life's over. They can't leave their house. They have depression, and they're never going to be able to return to work.
Right.
That's just an ambiguous claim that you need to investigate.
Yeah. I've seen a bunch of those, and sometimes you end up with what we kind of use as slang or just kind of a catchphrase is a frequent flyer, right? Someone who they seem to just get injured every 12 months or something, and I've seen cases where it's actually legitimate, right? They just have a job where it's
bad luck.
Yeah, bad luck.
Right.
Really physically intense labor that they're doing as their role, and it's legitimate. And so I think the take home from my perspective or my standpoint is that there's no single red flag, right? That's necessarily going to contribute to bringing you guys in or questioning the validity or the extent of something like this. It's really the picture as a whole, right? So you have to paint that entire picture. And then when it comes to the courtroom, you guys are painting a portion of that picture to either substantiate, one side's claim or the other. And so I think that's hugely helpful, especially in self-insured cases, because in self-insured cases, it's the employer's dollar. And so those dollars are going to be distributed one way or another. If we end up saving a little bit on a claim because we're pulling that money back from an overall settlement, that now means that there's more money in the organization to go to salaries or, to go toward benefits or reinvesting in the company and growing. So that's all, that's all really important in terms of just counting every penny or trying to save every penny that you can, right? So now the overall topic that we wanted to hit on, and you touched on it a little bit with this session, is just to talk about social media investigation, right? So kind of what goes into it, what constitutes social media investigation, and then really its role in the overall investigation of a claim.
Right. This is the juicy stuff, the fun topic.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear more and more about it. What I would say is, ask yourself, right, in 2019, how much are you doing that's online?
Right.
How much of a digital footprint do you create, Matt?
Right. I create a huge one.
What aren't you doing that doesn't involve your smartphone or your laptop or your iPad, right?
Yep.
Think about how many selfies are posted online each and every day.
Oh, no kidding.
So today, your social media presence is really a society status point for people.
Yep.
And people are sharing more and more each day.
Mm-hmm.
There's the big profiles, the LinkedIn, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the Twitter. Everybody knows the big four, but they're four of over 500 platforms that are out there, and there's new ones created every day.
Yep.
So what we want to know is, what's your presence on that? What's your online digital footprint? And how does that compare and contrast to what you're claiming and alleging in your work-related accident?
Right.
So, we want to scour that internet, and we want to find, are you posting about where you're working out? Are you talking about, your fitness plan or your diet plans on My Fitness app?
Right.
Are you talking about upcoming vacations or past vacations you took around the data loss on TripAdvisor or sites like that?
Right.
Are you promoting your own business on Angie's List or Craigslist or Facebook ads?
Mm-hmm.
You're out of work, but yet you have a landscaping business you're promoting. How does that work?
Right.
So these are ways that we could really monitor somebody's social media presence. And the best way for an insured or risk manager to look at it is it's a public window into somebody's daily lifestyle activities. If you're not taking advantage of that public window, you're doing a disservice to your insured or your state entity that you represent, because that information's there and that's part of the picture. Like you said, you're trying to draw this picture. You're trying to get an understanding of the injury and the individual's abilities. And social media is a number one stop for us as investigators to gather that information.
Right. Now, logistically, I kind of want to clear the air, because I think some people might get the misconception that you're digging in, not necessarily in nefarious ways to their social media feeds, but some people always get worried that, like, oh, my Facebook page got hacked or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone must be trying to dig up some information. You guys aren't really hacking into someone's social feed, right? It's a matter of what they're sharing and making publicly available. And then I think there's also some case law behind it where, if you share something on your page and it's marked as private or something, but then someone who's connected to you then shares that, now it's out in the open, right? It's something that's freely discoverable by whomever might come across it. Is that right?
Yeah. So you hit on it. The big deal for us legally is public versus private, right? And I will say, that's one of our biggest barriers as time goes on. People are becoming more aware of their online presence. It's almost like a resume of who you are and what you do. So people are conscious of that. So yeah, we do have to, limit ourselves to publicly available information. We're held to the same legal guidelines, as many others, in that, if I get subpoenaed, for a deposition, I have to explain how we went about our investigation and how we met our legal guidelines to do so.
Right.
But like you mentioned, Matt Struck, he keeps his profiles private. Right? He doesn't share with anybody what he's doing or what he's up to. but your wife loves to talk, and she loves to talk about your family and your kids and how you coach your daughter's softball team. So that's the information we're going to use, and that's how we're going to keep digging.
Right.
We had a case not too long ago that kind of revolved around this, where an individual had a private everything. He was a firefighter out of work for a few years.
Okay.
He actually had a knee surgery. That was approved by the insured. They paid for it, and he was a year post-op, but he did not want to return to work.
Okay.
All of his, the doctor said, this guy's playing games. He's ready to go back to work. You should really investigate. So like I said, red flag, when a doctor says investigate, you want to jump on it.
Most definitely, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So we start investigating, and he has a lot of online profiles, between LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. He was very active, but it was all private information. So we were limited to, some basic parameters that didn't really tell us about his abilities.
Right.
However, a few weeks later, as we continued monitoring, he opened up an Instagram page.
Okay.
When he opened up that Instagram page, he wasn't conscious of private versus public.
Okay.
And, new pages are often set publicly. Well, he has a knee injury, but yet he wanted to share and tell all of his friends that he recently went to the trampoline fun zone.
Oh, my God.
Where he was jumping on trampolines, dunking basketballs, diving into foam pits. So that video was awesome. And we were able to take that, give it to the doctor, who was livid. He brought the patient in and shared the video with the claimant.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the claimant said, you know what, I think I'm ready to go back to work.
Yes.
So he changed his tune very fast. So that's the power of, just because somebody's profile is private, don't stop digging.
Right.
You're going to find other stuff that they're going to open up, or family and friends are going to put some information out there that's going to help you lead your investigation.
Right. And I think, so obviously opinions of social media, just in general, from a cultural standpoint, there's a wide range, right? So a lot of people feel that social media is the devil and they don't want to share anything on there. And then other people, essentially, like you said, they live their entire life there, and that's how they connect with most of the people that they're talking with, especially over long distances. I actually I find it a truth serum, right? But I actually find it a truth serum to a positive extent, because if you're now putting that stuff out there, you're now bound by what you're actually posting, what you're sharing, your thoughts and feelings that come with it. And so
your interests, your likes, your hobbies, all that kind of stuff is out there.
Yeah, and I think I think at the beginning, a lot of people, you see it in like Major League Baseball and professional sports a lot. A lot of high schoolers or teenagers get on it, and they think they can share just anything. I think adults aren't immune to that either. I think they feel like, oh, I have a new Facebook page. I can say as many F-bombs and threaten the president's life and all this other stuff, and it doesn't have any repercussions. But I think over time they end up learning a little bit, and I think some of the work that you do actually helps bring them back to a place of accountability, right?
Yeah, and you're right on the older generation. They're not the most tech savvy at points, and just getting that Facebook account set up, they don't think anything to the privacy versus publicly posted information.
Right.
Another example I have is, and I could just tell you how important social media is to us. In using it is we do social media investigations on any assignment we get for surveillance. Okay, because imagine if we didn't do it. It would be like going out blindfolded to perform surveillance. Right. We wouldn't have photographs. We wouldn't have information about individuals.
And you kind of use that as a roadmap, right? So it's, the social media isn't always the smoking gun or the silver bullet, right? The social media just kind of gives you that background or context to figure out what the next steps are, right?
Yeah, so I like to look at it as social media as lead or tip generation, and then surveillance is black and white. That's your video evidence, and that's what's going to contradict a claim. There's pitfalls with social media that make surveillance a lot more valuable. Definitely. So, and I think that's a good thing as a take home as well. Is it's not just the social media investigation, right? The social media is kind of leading you down a path, but it's really going to be that concrete evidence on the back end that kind of supports that, and that's also also helps protect those folks that it's actually legitimate, right? Even if they do post something like, them going somewhere or picture of them shoveling the driveway or something, that's, again, a single point in time. It might
just have been that. It might have been a good day. It might have been they got like some kind of pain injection and they were able to do something that day. And,
well, let me give you an example too. With baseball season starting, we had an individual who just posted a picture of him swinging a baseball bat. Right?
Yep.
Now, there was no stadium in the background. There was no geo-tracking or metadata that put him at a baseball game. And the date of loss was several months ago. Now, that photo is great. And a client may say, oh, he's swinging a bat. We got him. It's cut and dry. But his attorney is going to say that photo was from years ago. And he just posted it because, baseball season starting. It's his connection to baseball.
Right.
But what it tells us as investigators is, he's got a connection to baseball. This isn't your evidence, but this gives you a reason to look further into local intramural leagues and baseball leagues. And is he playing baseball? Find those season schedules and schedule surveillance on days where we think he might be playing baseball. That's where you get your evidence.
Okay. So my next thought here is, is there ever a circumstance where an employer should be kind of doing this work, or do you think it is best suited to bring someone like PrimeSource in to do this, and why, right?
Yeah, so you have a lot of junior investigators out there.
Yeah. Well, they watch CSI, so,
No, a lot of times I'll get a case and an adjuster will say, I already found his Facebook. He's all over Facebook. But that's where they stop, right?
Yeah.
So what I would say, there's do's and don'ts if you're going to be doing your own investigation. One is hire a professional, and I mean that in the softest, most respectful manner as possible. But you want objectivity, right? You don't want to be the one that's going to be called to the deposition and testify to the findings. We have adjusters that'll find a photo of somebody fishing, print it out, put it in their drawer, and then 2 years later, when the case is finally coming to trial, what are you going to do? Hand the judge a photo from 2 years ago of him fishing?
Yeah, right.
There's no documentation of the rest of his online presence. So you want to scour completely. Like I said before, there's algorithmic database resources we use to go deeper than what a junior or just an unseasoned investigator would be capable of doing.
Yeah.
When you do hire your professional SIU partner, whether it's PrimeSource or somebody else, I would say be conscious of providing them with as much information as you possibly can. People think, oh, here's his name, date of birth, and the date of injury, and his address. Go get him.
Yeah.
But for many reasons, we would like to know, does he have a cell phone? Does he have an email address? Can that stuff help us develop a handle, on a small social media platform that nobody else knows about, like TikTok or some forum? And then, you also want to take information about history. Is there a tip that this individual plays baseball? Or, is there a tip that he's running his own landscaping business? So we can dig deeper into business registration records for that type of stuff.
Right.
So we can really encompass everything when we investigate for you.
Now, so social media investigation isn't a panacea, right? So it's not always going to be 100%, not without, or maybe even with some failings, but I mean, there are some bumps in the road, right? So what are some of the drawbacks to social media investigation? I mean, can it work against an employer in kind of combating things, or what's really kind of the drawbacks?
So if we go back to the junior investigator trying to do their own investigation, you have to be careful, right? You can leave your own footprint. So if you say Matt, the risk manager at ABC Company, wants to go and investigate a petitioner, and you find their LinkedIn page and you start looking at it, you're going to leave your footprint on their LinkedIn page.
Right.
And they're going to get an email that Matt, the risk manager at my company, is looking at my page.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And now if I'm running my own business or promoting a small business endeavor while I'm out on comp, I'm going to put everything down. I'm going to close down my pages. I'm not going to do anything revolving around that business, and it's going to make it harder for us as the investigators to go out and get you that evidence, right?
Not to mention the fact that you can stumble into an employment practices liability claim for, discrimination or harassment. Yeah.
And, I think we talked on the public versus private issue. That's a big one. And then I think the other drawback that we mentioned was just, dates, dates of photos, dates of videos. Sometimes you do have the geo-tracking capabilities and metadata that can help confirm that an individual was at a certain event and that video did take place on that day. But oftentimes you don't. And that's petitioners, attorneys, best defense when it comes to social media findings.
Right. Yeah. No, so what's funny is I got to give a shout out to Ming Chen here in A Shared Universe. this podcast studio. This is the first time we're here officially for Call Your Broker. But I was here earlier for an interview on another podcast, and it just impressed me so much that we decided to make the transition. So now we're cutting the episodes here. But so when you're talking about kind of authentication, we're sitting in a studio filled with collectibles, signatures, stuff like that, right? And so that's always a big deal when it comes to authenticating anything, right? Is being able to place the person or place the actual evidence that you see in front of you within some kind of context to make sure that it's actually truthful and not fraudulent, right? Or manipulated. And so I think that piece of that where a picture can go up on a day that might have been weeks in the past or weeks in the future from when that picture was taken is a big component to this, right? So you always have to work with a professional firm that's cognizant of those things, right? So just any investigative firm that's coming in that's saying, oh, we got him, like July 13th, he was there doing this. You guys are actually dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Right. So that's an important point to anyone who might listen to this or is listening. You need to work with a firm that doesn't just say they do social media investigation, right? They actually have a pedigree for it and actually understand how social media works.
Yeah. And to that point, just to plug PrimeSource for a second, I would tell you that, we don't charge for social media analysis with the assignment of surveillance. And I told you before, it's something that we offer for free. And it's something we've been doing for the last few years because we're going to do it anyway, Matt. I'm telling you, we'd be going out blindfolded without doing a social media analysis. Some of my team members get frustrated with me sometimes because we have a very large list of social media assignments that we need to get done in a time-sensitive manner. But it's important. I don't want to go out on surveillance because I can't schedule strategically without that information.
Right. Yeah. That's always, the advice that I give as a risk manager is, you want the correct professionals, not just in terms of the name or the role that they play, but you always want that experiential component to it, or that subject matter expertise.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think we've really kind of done a pretty decent dive into social media investigation. I want to transition a little bit just to some of the I'll call it kind of like the secret spy elements of claims investigation.
Good description.
Yeah. So what kind of advancements have happened? I mean, technology is advancing all the time, right? And I would imagine that's the case within the investigative world, right?
Yeah, so it's a two-part advancement, right? So we just covered the first part, social media. That advancement to scheduling of surveillance has been dynamite for us. We know when to schedule now. We know what to be looking for. We know family demographics. We know vehicle information, residential setups. Google Earth, tells us so much more. So social media and internet mining really helps us on one side. Then the other side is just technology and the advancements in cameras and video equipment. So, hidden cameras have always been around. It used to be one of my senior partners talks about how we used to carry a camera in a big suitcase as you go into a grocery store. Why do you have that big suitcase in the gym? I don't know, but, that's how it was years ago. And today, cameras are the size of a pen or a box of matches. They're very, very small. Your cell phone can double as a hidden camera. There's apps with date and time stamps, and you can have a black screen on your cell phone and have it out like everybody else does at a gym or a fitness center, and be able to videotape people working out at the gym. So that technology has helped us, not only get people when they're outside mowing their lawn, but get people when they're bartending in a bar off the books, or when they're serving at a restaurant or working out at a gym. Now, we've also taken this technology to the next level. And as far as we know at PrimeSource, in speaking with industry professionals, we're one of the few companies doing it. And we've created what we call the PrimeSource Surveillance Sidekick.
Okay.
So let's talk about that hidden camera, right? And now let's combine it with Wi-Fi technology.
All right.
Okay. So walk with me, Matt, right?
Yeah,
Put on the surveillance hat, right? Okay. We're going to talk about some of the more challenging surveillance setups that we've ever faced as investigators. And whether you're talking to PrimeSource or any of my competitors, they're going to tell you the worst cases are rural setup cases. Right? Okay. Imagine that case up in Northwest. And
no cover.
No cover, right? The houses are spread out, by hundreds of yards. There's no shoulder on the side of the road. put yourself in the shoes of a surveillance agent. What do? Right?
Yep.
You set up your vehicle on the side of the shoulder, and it's first thing that the claimant sees when they leave their house is you and your vehicle.
Yeah,
how do you follow them?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get anywhere? And what's your other option? Your other option is, okay, there's a gas station a half mile away. Let's go set up there, which is to the left of the residence, and let's cross our fingers that he's going to come our way.
Right.
You're only covering one of the
50-50.
two exit routes.
Yep.
Not a good way to handle the case. So now what we do is we use our PrimeSource surveillance Sidekick with that hidden camera technology and some proprietary disguises, which I can't really explain too much.
Okay.
But
disguises for you or disguises for the camera?
The camera.
Okay.
Again, imagine the size of a box of matches or a pack of cigarettes, right? We're talking about a very small hidden camera that can be put on a public roadway.
Okay.
That we can see the exit from that residence.
Okay.
Now, as a manned surveillance operative working in conjunction with this surveillance Sidekick, we can set up at that local gas station, right? And we can open up our iPad or our laptop and we can watch the live stream of that video. So now, when that individual comes out in the blue van or the white van, or he turns left or he turns right, we know and we're ready to go out there and get him.
Okay.
As opposed to sitting up and him seeing us right away, or sitting and hoping he comes our way.
Right.
So now we have the technology to answer some of the most challenging setups. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is the inner city setup, right?
Yep.
So in Philadelphia, you have a front entrance and a rear alley.
Yep.
Okay. In Hoboken, you have a 10-story apartment building with 2 exits, right? One on each side.
Yep.
So you're not 2 guys. You can only do so much. Now you have a surveillance Sidekick, which again is something PrimeSource isn't charging extra for. We look at it as another tool in our kit, right? That we're going to apply to our cases. So you're getting the power of 2 investigators watching 2 different exit ways with one manned investigator.
And so now, is that a technology that you guys have developed internally? Like, is that a proprietary? Is that something that's available out there in the marketplace, or how did that kind of manifest itself?
I would explain it's a combination of a few different technology devices that are out there. Right?
Okay. All right.
And that's kind of where I'd leave it.
That's fine. I'm a big proponent of just technology in general, right? But taking your expertise on the job and really not just taking what's out there for granted, but basically adapting and overcoming or bringing in new technology that maybe you're repurposing from a different industry or something. So that's big. I love that. The one of the seven deadly sins should be complacency, right?
Yes.
We've always done it that way. Is the worst phrase that you could ever hear as a risk manager, or even probably a surveillance professional. All right, so we talked about some logistics. We talked about some kind of day-to-day type stuff. I really want to ask you in terms of some of the more interesting cases that you've been involved in, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there's some fun stories that you have. I'm pretty sure not all of them are, things that you can necessarily put out there or want to put out there maybe. But do you have a couple of more eye-opening cases?
Stuff?
Yeah, just kind of really strange or extreme cases where the circumstances were just completely different than what everyone thought the original situation was.
So as far as surveillance goes, there's a new crazy story every week. We're seeing stuff that's really mind-blowing, and you'd just be like, no, that didn't really happen. It did.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of surveillance stories, but I think one of the best gotcha social media stories I have just came up about a month ago. We were asked to investigate 3 young females in their early 20s who were involved in a motor vehicle accident. They were all in the vehicle together.
Okay.
The accident happened over a year ago, about a year and a half ago. And they said, we want to know what their social media presence is. They got a lot of orthopedic restrictions, some psych restrictions. So just, report and let us know where we stand. So we go into it and we find 2 of the 3 girls very fast. We see their presence is they're 22, 23-year-old females, so their presence is all over the place, dozens of platforms.
Right.
We're having a hard time finding the 3rd female, whose first name is Josephine.
Okay.
We're digging and digging. It just doesn't make sense to not find her profile. But when we're reviewing, and sometimes this is where it's more than just a name search, but it's really reviewing the material that we develop, and we're looking into the other two girls' profiles, pretty deep, and we're noticing an individual by the name of Josh that's showing up on both of these females' pages. So we start looking into Josh a bit more, and we go back over the years, and there's one platform in particular, TikTok, where we saw many videos being posted.
Yep.
And we saw a transformation, transgender transformation of Josh over the year and a half from Josephine.
Oh, wow.
So this was just an example of how, just continuing to dig, we were able to find, who we were looking for as a female is now a male. And imagine how that helped us with surveillance going forward.
Oh,
right?
No kidding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a very interesting social media gotcha moment where we were able to find this, and the videos we were able to find, showed orthopedically that they could do a lot more than they had claimed.
Right. Yeah, no, that's and I love that example too, because that's obviously a cultural trend or something that people are paying a lot more attention to nowadays is the transgender community, and this is less of the kind of transgendered rights conversation. It's more of the other kind of downstream, just characteristics of having more of a open transgender community. What that entails for everyone, right?
Yeah, listen, it was the first time we ever saw something like this, and it's really opened up our thought process to be on the lookout for this more often, as it could be occurring.
Yep.
Surveillance gotcha moments. I have a few here, but we had a guy a few months ago that big shoulder injury, went out golfing 4 times the following month.
Oh my God.
A shoulder injury. We had a guy, he went to his FCE. 10 out of 10 pain, really dogged it at the FCE. The results came back, and he was saying he couldn't lift 5 pounds. He went home 20 minutes later and removed a refrigerator on the same day from the back of his pickup truck. So that's blatant, cut and dry, fraud in that situation.
And just for anyone listening who's not familiar with the the term or the phrase FCE, that's functional capacity examination.
Correct.
So anyone who's seen some of the ways that they kind of do like CGI almost, they put little colored dots on your body, typically at your joints or other points of inflection or reflection, and they'll essentially use a video camera to watch your gait or watch how you move while you pick up objects or stretch and things like that. And that can tell you a lot about whether someone actually is injured, whether they're milking it, and to what extent their limited range of motion is. So just a little kind of the more public service announcement on that one. Anything else in terms of the world of kind of gotcha fun stuff?
Another residency case. We were working on a law enforcement official who had he is in the process of moving out of the county. He also had a work comp case, but there's rules that they need to stay within certain territorial areas for residing as a law enforcement officer. So not only did we get video of him moving boxes and carrying all of his household items and moving in a U-Haul to a new residence outside the county.
Okay.
He was deposed, and he testified that he didn't move and he didn't carry those boxes, and he actually perjured himself.
Yep.
And as a result, his claim was mitigated, but he also lost his job as a police officer in that matter. So that was a real big gotcha. Like, wow, this evidence can be used in multiple facets.
Oh yeah, and also from that angle, I think that's a take home for anyone who they have a legitimate claim, right? The intent of workers' comp, the intent of most of the laws that we have, also on the liability side of the house, or even in the property claims and the employment practices claims arena, the intent is to make sure to right wrongs or to help someone who's injured get back up on their feet and recover as much as possible. But in those cases, don't stretch it. Like don't try and go for more just thinking that you got them right where you want them. Just make sure to work with the system. The system's there to try and get you back to 100%, especially if it's a workers' comp claim. And that's also my father was a police officer for 27 years, so that's also kind of a bittersweet story for me, because the last thing you want to do is take someone out of the field of work who it took a lot of time to train, probably had a lot of experience on the job. And really, what were they going to get from it, right? They were maybe going to get a couple $1,000s more on their permanency claim on the workers' comp case, or a couple more weeks of, not necessarily have to be in full duty. But so
to that point, I would just add, we are a third party. We are an objective party.
Yep.
We oftentimes go out and learn that individuals are legitimately injured.
Right.
And we're reporting that back to the insureds. And sometimes it's best for the insureds and the attorneys to know that information and say, you know what, we got a legitimately injured individual here who we need to pay. And
Yep.
we need to give them permanency in this matter.
Yep.
And that's very important to understand, while we are hired by the insureds, we are a third-party, objective party that's separated from the insured. And it's our responsibility to stay professional in that matter and report and record what we see.
Right.
It would be illegal for me to say, this guy's out here walking with a cane, and we're not videotaping it. That's just not the case.
Right.
I will videotape that, and I will report that to the insured. And at that point, the insured can make their decision how they want to move forward with that case.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing is that you have a professional reputation and a brand that you're trying to build and uphold. And so you're going to go about doing your business correctly, because if you don't, the phone stops ringing, which is a good point. All right. So the last question here, the last section is the kind of the more just kind of get to know you kind of moment.
Okay.
I try to ask most of our guests. Sometimes I forget a little bit, but the last question I have for you is really, what are you either reading or listening to or watching nowadays? And it can be, anything from a professional development thing to more of an entertainment piece.
Well, I watch a lot of cartoons. I have a 3-year-old at home, so
that'll do it.
I don't get a lot of control of the television. But no, in all honesty, you said John Gainey's coming in. That's one of my industry experts that I turn to for advice. And
his blog's fantastic.
His blog is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of the different case law that develops, can affect us as investigators and a vendor to some of the insured. So I do take time to read some of the more interesting articles he posts there.
Awesome.
There's a magazine, PI Magazine, which is obviously catered to investigators. Talks about new technological advancements. So,
cool.
I'll try to squeeze a few minutes in to read a few articles here and there on that. And then just for me, in my business as an owner, I read Inc. magazine.
Okay.
And that's a magazine that really helps me better understand client relations and, things I can be doing to, better cater to my clients' needs, in a professional manner. So
awesome.
I would say that's where I try to live.
I would say that's a very well-rounded answer to that question. We got one of every topic in there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you. Where can everyone find PrimeSource or information on PrimeSource if they're looking online?
Sure, PrimeSourceInvestigations.com. I have a few blogs on there myself. One talks to the red flags that we had mentioned earlier. So if there are red flags as a risk manager or personnel director that you want to get a better list of them, you can go to my site and you can read about them and read about how we can help you with our services.
Fantastic. All right. Yeah, everyone go to, PrimeSourceInvestigations.com?
Correct.
Awesome. Yeah, and sign up for the blog. So, Nate, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll have to do another one of these.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially on the, the more gotcha kind of cases.
Sounds
I want to
good.
hear more about that.
Very good.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
If you